let's start with the very basics. What is a value proposition?
So a value proposition is a business communicating their value to their customer. So it's really telling the customer why they should choose you over someone else. And it's really important to think about this because in a sea of competitors, why would someone choose you over someone else? As you're starting to form your product, sell your service, thinking about who is out there that's selling that product or service and how you differentiate is very, very important.
100%. Really feeds off the conversation we just had with Troy about identifying your target market, which is crucial because if you don't know who your market is, then it's really hard to identify what problem you solve.
Right.
Which can be the essence of the value proposition. Because a lot of times we think of the product or the service has to be the value proposition itself. What else makes a value proposition a value proposition?
Yeah, so it's what you're doing to make the customer's life easier or better, how to enhance that customer's way of doing whatever they're doing. I mean, I love Nike's value proposition. Their value proposition is generating confidence and success, right? So it's not just about a shoe and making you run faster.
Right.
It's about how you feel.
Yeah.
And that is very powerful, right? I can put on a Nike shoe and I feel different. That's beyond the product, beyond the service. How are you making the customer feel? So another example is cleaning services. We have our corporate cleaning services like a Molly Maid, a Mary Maid.
Right.
I don't know if I could say those names. On
Not
podcast.
endorsing.
But like a corporate, cleaning service. When you hire them, the value proposition is you're getting someone that's efficient, cheaper,
Right.
and standard services, right? But if you're now you're creating your own cleaning company and maybe you want something different, you want to provide a different way of doing something, maybe you want to make the customer feel like they are getting an organic product so they're feeling better about the cleaning products in their home. So you may be a little bit more expensive, but you're making them feel a certain way about the products in their home, especially if they have children or pets. So thinking about how you differentiate yourself from the competitors out there and what makes you more attractive to your customer base.
That's such a good point. The emotion that you evoke. I was, when I was on the public speaking circuit, I'd go around and one of the things that I learned very quickly is people don't remember 99.9% of what you say, but they remember 100% of the way you make them feel. Or they don't remember you because you didn't make them feel anything.
Right.
And so if you want to stand out and be successful, even in that kind of market, when that's looking more at like the service side, right? And so I'm providing a service. A lot of people think that the service that they're providing, public speaking, is like education, information, and kind of these life-changing strategies or whatever it is that you're speaking on. But it's really that emotion that you evoke in people, and that makes all the difference in the world. And it's true for products and services for all the same. So that is a very important thing. So it's a question to ask yourself if you're out there and you're thinking about the business that you want to start and you have this idea, whether it's a clothing line, whether you're a hairdresser or anything like that. If you're a hairdresser, it's not like we're doing your hair. It's like that feeling of confidence, just like Nike, like feeling of confidence that you have when you leave and you're like, I'm beautiful and this is great. Like that's actually the service.
Right.
It's not the doing the hair. The doing the hair is just how you get there.
Right. Right. It goes beyond what you're providing. It goes beyond the service or product. It's that feeling you evoke when you get that product or you get that service. Thinking about people that come into your home and do work. When you have that interaction with someone, you want to come away feeling good about it and feeling like, I want to use them again. So your value proposition is also talking about how do I get my customer back, right? Like why do they want to keep coming back to me? What is the feeling that I get or that as a customer I get from using that product or service that makes me want to keep coming back?
That's such a good point. It's because a lot of times you don't just attract your market once, you have to attract them again. Like, okay, good, you got them you have a great value proposition. They're like, oh, this is great. You provide this cleaning service and you do it cheaper, and you came out like same day, and I really needed it because we have a get together tomorrow. So you came up and you showed up and you did it. But part of it is the quality of the service that you provide, but also those kind of interactions that you have with it, like how personable are you, and those kind of intangibles that kind of go around it.
Like think about Uber. Right? Uber versus using a taxi service. With Uber, it's on your phone. You don't have to exchange any money. You don't have to tip. You don't have to have that awkward interaction of getting change. Like that was a value proposition that Uber brought.
And you can see exactly when they're going to show up.
Yes.
Like this is where the car is. This is the license plate. This is the person, and they're going to show up. You're here. You point to them on the map. I'm here. And they say, I'm going to be there at that time.
Yeah.
Versus, like I'm just going to go stick my arm out in the street and hope that I can find a taxi or, and just kind of living a serendipitous, type of life versus like, no, I need it now. And so I can, that's
And
great.
also that accountability as well,
Right.
the safety aspect. Uber gave that to customers. And when you use Uber, you come away feeling like, okay, I feel like I had a great interaction from start to finish versus or maybe better than using a taxi service. That's the value proposition that they bring.
And then Uber even built in the onboard incentives for the drivers to do better with like the rating things. Like how could you rate a taxi?
Right.
You're like, oh, it smells like throw up and it's complete wreck and the person's blaring music that I don't want to listen to, this whole thing. You get in an Uber and it's like, there's like a fresh bottle of water. It's like everything's clean.
Right. It raises the stakes.
It does.
And also on the flip side, and talking about value propositions for customers, there was also value propositions for the employees, right? So the drivers can rate passengers.
Exactly.
So there's different value propositions that Uber has, one for customers, one for employees.
It's a really good point that a value proposition isn't like my company has this value proposition and that's it. It's like you can have these layers of value propositions.
Right.
I think that's important to consider.
Right. Like Nike, for example, go back to Nike. They have their value proposition for their customers, but then they have a value proposition for their employees of what they can offer their employees, the impact that the company has in the community, right? It makes you feel good about working for that company. So there's different value propositions that you have to create for your different stakeholders.
Well, yeah, and then you think about Nike. So you have Nike that sells directly from Nike to consumer. Then you have that value proposition.
Right.
Then you have the one for the employees. But not only that, like where else does Nike sell their shoes and their clothing? It's in these other stores, these other distributors. And so how do you attract that other than the fact that you're an attractive brand and people want to buy it? And so I want to sell things that people want. And so I want Nike. But how do you make that advantageous? What's the value proposition for, any of the athletic stores that carry Nike brands?
Yeah.
Whether it's Foot Locker or anywhere like that, that's not a Nike store. And so you had to attract that. You have to have a value proposition for those distributors.
Right.
And so that's significant. So again,
Exactly.
these multiple, and they're not the same. It's not the same value proposition. So so we talked about in the beginning, like what is a value proposition? Why does it matter? Now we did that from kind of the perspective of an entrepreneur that's like kind of getting started, a new business. They're in the ideation phase. But for a business that is that's already up and running and they have clients and they're making sales, and they haven't really worked through this. So like, I'm a tailor and I tailor suits. We do dry cleaning and all of these things. And that's what we do. Is it too late for them to consider a value proposition at that point, or should they just be focused on serving their clients and things of that nature?
It's never too late. And I would argue that it's a living thing, your value proposition. So it should be changing as you grow. When you're first starting out, you may have a feeling of what your product or service should be providing to the community. And then as you're growing and you have more customers, you have more stakeholders, you're changing that value proposition. So it's never too late. You should start now and then wherever you are in your business, and then always revisit and see where it could be fine-tuned. Maybe your community has changed, right? Or maybe you've moved, or maybe your product or service has changed.
Yep.
It's a living thing.
That's something I've just had this conversation with multiple different clients about this in the beginning stage, especially from the ideation back to that startup entrepreneur, is how can you take advantage? A lot of people think that they're this big underdog because they're starting out. It's a 1, 2, 3 person operation. And they're competing against these organizations that already exist, that already provide the service, but they want to do it too. And they're like, how do I compete there? And I'm like, and that's where the conversation about value, but like, what is the unique value proposition you have? Like, well, we kind of do the same thing, and I'm like, okay, well, let's figure out competition research. Like, what is it that they're specifically offering? Like, there's a data management company that's a client, and other people do data management, they do cleanup and all of that. I'm like, well, do you know what the packages they are? Do you know like what tiers that people can sign up for, their different levels and all of that? And where are the gaps that they're missing there? But also, if they're huge, if this is a 1,500, employee base business that you're competing against with like, 2 of you against that, there are advantages to being small. There's a dynamic capability to respond and to take immediate action on things. Like, it's kind of harder to steer a ship that's really, really big, to change its bearing and to change its degree to start moving a slightly different direction. You can move on a dime. You can respond on a dime. You don't have a lot of the bureaucratic steps that they have to go through because they're so big, because they're managing so many clients. Yeah. You could be a lot more personable. And all of this is to your point that the value proposition should grow for you. So if you're a 2-person operation and you have 1 client and you're looking to get, 5 more, the promise you can make to those total of 6 clients is different than that unique value, that unique promise of value that you're going to offer when you get up to 35.
Exactly.
But that doesn't make it wrong, and it doesn't make you inconsistent for changing as you grow, but you have to take advantage of the situation that you're in.
Yeah.
In order to grow.
Absolutely. And also the value proposition can change from customer to customer, or to customer bucket to customer bucket.
Right.
Right. I had a client who wanted to do work with a government agency, and it was AV, right? So doing the lighting and camera work for a government agency like this. And their company office was a block away from the agency. That is a value proposition for them.
Yes, it is.
Right? Because if in the case of an emergency, in case something breaks down, they can be there in a second.
Absolutely.
And so that to the point of, does the value proposition change? It can even change from customer to customer depending on how you're marketing to them.
Right.
And so that's, another way that you can tweak your value proposition to the actual market.
Right. Do you have a method for how a business can look at the service or the product that they're offering and to kind of devise a way to come up with their value proposition? Like, do you have any sort of, I have a template that we'll go over here in a second, but I'm curious if you have any sort of kind of like mental shortcuts that somebody can take to help get you to answering that question with a little bit more clarity.
Yeah, I like to ask questions. Why would my customer want to use me over another company? Why is my product the best? What feelings do I evoke when a customer uses my product? So that's how I do it. Is I first like to ask those questions. What are my differentiators? What separates me from the competition? And then, of course, then you plug those in to the formula that you're going to talk about.
Yeah. So, the template that I have is that, let's say you have, your company, so let's call it, X company serves Y customer base, which is like, go back to the episode where we, with Troy, where we talk about target market, target customer. And so you can fill in that blank after you do that work. So this company helps this market, this person, this customer to do Z, and so that, to me, that's kind of like the baseline. So we help these people to do this. We help you to be happy by listening. Like if you go to like content creators online, and you have like comedians, or you're a comedian yourself, and so I help 9 to 5 working individuals cut loose and smile and have fun, either like, on their way to work, or if you're looking at your, again, different value propositions. So if you have like an online podcast or whatever like this, or you have a comedy show online. And so if you have these different components, you have these different avenues that you, like we had talked about earlier, you have these different value propositions, you work those out. But it goes back, you take exactly those kind of questions that you're asking, and you can use the answers from this. So if you want to make something like really distilled, because I've seen value propositions that are like a paragraph long, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Sometimes for clarity in the beginning, it's easy to work with a template, which is why I like this one. So this company, we help these people to do this. And it might be to overcome this. It might be to, to be, like you said, it can be improve your life. It can be to solve a problem. It can, these kind of different effects that you want to have on people's lives. Not all of them have to be fix a problem. It can be, make you happy, make you smile, Now the addendum at the end of this, which is somewhat optional, and we were talking about this before the show, is, but here we'll go into an example. We have I pulled up a couple. I don't think I'm going to go through all of them. And so let's go with Apple. Apple, this is so good because of exactly what you were talking about earlier with emotion.
Yeah.
And there's and the following that has grown around it. And so and this isn't like official from Apple. This is me breaking down Apple. And so as I put, Apple works with consumers. It should be Apple helps consumers who want a seamless experience across technological platforms. And then this is like the addendum. So in that part, you have Apple, the company, works with consumers. Again, so that's general. And that's something that you could get a lot more specific in. And I think that Apple has a really good idea of the different target segments that they're working with.
Yeah.
But who want a seamless experience across technological platforms. And so, there's not a competitor, me as an Android user, there's not really a competitor to the way that you can, both across like your own devices, like from computer to TV to phone to tablet, iPad, words.
Yeah.
There's not really a competitor. Like you have these software companies that help you to do it on other products. Like Google can help you to kind of go across individual things. Like if you're trying to Netflix, you can go from your phone, you can pick up the same kind of timeline on other devices, but it's all disassociated. And Apple has this like ecosphere that's just all like really seamlessly connected. Again, as an Android user, I recognize,
Yeah.
but that's only one, in my opinion, it's only one value proposition, is that the seamless connection across devices, because then you could actually look at that and do seamless connection with other Apple users.
Yes. And what I also want to emphasize is that you can use a headline as a value proposition and then break it down even more. Yes. So for Apple, I think their headline is, an iPhone is not just a collection of apps, it's magic or something like that. Right? And then they break it down further into, seamless integration and all the things all those buzzwords that consumers want to hear. But I love that it's like magic, right? That's how you feel.
Right. That it goes to the emotion evoking. And so that's a beautiful point of making the transition from a value proposition, because a value proposition isn't necessarily aren't the words that you're using to communicate with your target market. Mm-hmm. It's almost an internal driver. Mm-hmm. And this is where it resides. So you're not taking this like, I have my marketing campaign. It's like, okay, I have my premise for my marketing campaign.
Yeah.
This is helping to guide me to identify these are the different roads that I want to go down with various marketing campaigns.
Right.
And so I think that's huge. And that transition and using the emotion there, That's marketing.
And listen, like Apple employs a marketing department that came up with that. It's very hard to go from like a formula, like Apple helps X do this, to then it's like magic, right? There's a jump there. But that is a really good place to start, that formula, and then thinking about brainstorming with your friends and family about, all right, now we have our formulaic value proposition. What are the feelings that we want to evoke? What, and that could be your headline.
Questions. Exactly.
And then you can break it down from the headline to subheadlines of like, this is what we're doing, right? So, but yeah, the like magic is something that is generated through a large marketing team. And then if you see it, and speaking to your point about that informing your marketing strategy, you could see in Apple's marketing strategy, they try to evoke that as well. Yeah. The white backgrounds, the black shirts, it's like magic,
Clean,
right?
crisp,
straightforward.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, that is, and all of those then evoke, even to the point of when you receive a package or whatever, like in the way that, and this is now being copied by so many other companies, that you have this, like, I forget what they call it. It's like the air sealed boxes where like it just slides out. The case cover slides
so easy,
and it's but like there's an elegance to it, and you're like, this is high quality. Even the packaging is high quality. The one add-on, and this is somewhat optional, but I think if you want the bonus material here, right, you want to go that one step further. So the way that I have this, so if we go back to the template, we have, and so this is, I have to change the letters a little bit because now there's another component. So we'll do this. We'll do X company helps Y market who want Z desired result. Right. And then we could go, if we go back to the beginning of the alphabet, and we'll go without / while avoiding a pain or obstacle.
Yep.
And so sometimes the desired result is avoiding the pain or obstacle. So this is where, you have to understand that value again that you're offering. But oftentimes it's a combination effect, which is, we go back to that very beginning example of the fast food restaurant. It's like you're providing food, but you're not just providing food, you're providing food on the go.
Right.
Fast. So you're avoiding wasting time.
Yeah.
And that's a huge, like, you look at there's very fundamental things that people, these obstacles that everybody runs into, and saving time is huge. We just had a Rich Rattan on, and his value proposition was, there's multiple layers, but what he talked about, the one value proposition that he had that really set him apart and led him to be successful, was convenience. He was open 6-7 days a week for training. And the hospitals that had him, that were doing the same training, that were the registered nurses that came to him, their own hospitals offered the same training. They only did it twice a month. You miss the training, you're out for a month.
Right.
And so he's there 6-7 days a week.
Yeah.
And so that convenient, the other value proposition is professional training, it's certified, all of these things, but it's convenient. And so that's, again, looking at those different components.
Yeah, definitely. Something as simple as just being available can be a value proposition.
Yeah, exactly. Available at the right time, right place. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be anything fancy, right? It doesn't have to be like magic, like Apple. It could be, I am available 24/7.
Right.
That could be a value proposition.
100%. So if you were to take like kind of one key takeaway that new, aspiring, even first 2-year businesses, when they're thinking about a value proposition, what's kind of the key takeaway that they can get from this conversation?
Yeah. The most important thing to do is do a competition analysis, a competitor analysis, and really understand what are the companies in your market that are doing your product or service, and what are they offering, and how you can differentiate yourself. Because that's the value proposition. What makes you different than all those other places, right? There's the Amazons and everyone else. What makes Amazon different? They can deliver the same day.
Right.
Simple.
Right.
So what makes you different than everyone else? And that's kind of where you should start.
100%. And the only thing I'd add on to that is, we call this the unique value proposition. We call it a value proposition. A synonym or an alternative way of viewing this that I think is crucial is that what is your promise of value? Like it's if you want to compete, if you see that the gap is in order to get on the line with this, to book an appointment, you or to talk with somebody at this company to schedule this service, you have to go through the scheduling system, and then you're going to talk with somebody within the next week. And you're like, oh, well, I see my in. I see the opening. And so I want to go, I want to have my unique value proposition be like, we talk the same day. You reach out, we speak, or within 6 hours or within 24 hours. That's a promise. And so it's one thing to identify it, but you also have to identify truly like, what are you capable of? And what are you willing to do consistently?
Yep.
Are you going to be answering the phone at 3 a.m? So maybe it's not, we answer immediately. Like you're always going to have a person on the other side. That's a great promise. Whenever you call our company, you will always talk to a person. Yeah. Really? Are you sure?
Right.
So
it's a promise.
Be aware of that promise.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Great.
Awesome.
That just brought me to the episode of The Office when they are like trying to get their client back. And one of the first things that they do, they're like, how long does it take for you to hear from one of our competitors? And they're like, within 2 days, something like that. And they literally use his phone to call their office, and someone answers immediately. And they're like, that's our promise to you. You're going to get that service every time.
Yeah.
That's exactly it.
It's so good.
That's literally exactly it. Let's go to the office. bringing in the example.
Yeah.
Representing.
Don't base your business off of The Office, just that one particular tidbit from that.
No, it's true. It's perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you. This is
you.
great. I think this is something that people can really get a lot of value from and to help them take that next step.
Yeah, I think so.
Thanks, Lauren.
Yeah.